Manor Lords is a medieval city builder that not too long ago took the internet by storm, and we've covered the ins and outs of how to thrive and survive in this game already a fair amount. But the game was recently updated, adding some new food sources, including fishing and butchery. So let's put those to the test, as well as revisit how food works in Manor Lords. Hello, my name is Midgeman, and welcome back to another Manor Lords guide. This video was produced on build 0.8.400, so be sure to check the comments for corrections if you're joining us on a later build, and as a note, we use a modded game state with console commands enabled to be able to quickly build our test scenarios, so don't be too confused if some things on screen don't match the base game. Anyway, looks like meat's back on the menu, folks. Or is it? Fishing. Fish are a new gatherable resource found in ponds across the map, which can be gathered by fishermen's huts, a 3-work slot building with a pantry size of 50. It is a seasonal resource, which, like hunting spots and berries, has a growth period of 1 season per year. They can be upgraded with the advanced pond keeping perk to double the shoals and allow for harvesting during wintertime. Right now, fishing should be treated as an early game resource or a supplementary one, as the shoals within the pond do not breed fast enough for mass harvesting, but they are a really good early source of food that will cover you while you get more in-depth food production sorted, as well as being useful for increasing food variety. Meat. Meat received the most prevalent overhaul in the current build of the game, and in the correct circumstances can be excellent. However, in its current state, depending on your start, its effectiveness can fluctuate. There are now 3 ways to get meat: traditional hunting, pig farming, and sheep farming. Hunting is an excellent way to keep massive stocks of food early on, especially if you have a rich yield in your settlement. We recommend setting up 2 hunters' camps and assigning 2 families to them, 1 to each. The main issue with the production chain for meat is not the gathering, but in the hunter's camp's pantry size being so limited. So splitting the workload of 1 family per camp will increase your overall efficiency. Pig farms are a burgage extension that costs 2 planks for the animal pen upgrade and 20 gold for ordering the pigs. Pigs generate 2 meat per 150 days. Their efficiency isn't really worth their cost of construction until much later in the game, and much like chicken coops, pigs do not need much room, so keep the burgage plot as small as possible. In the early game, the yield of a pig pen is too low to worry about, but there is a way to fix this, which we'll talk about at the end of the section. Butchers can convert sheep and lambs to meat or combine meat and salt to create sausages. Sheep provide 3 meat and lambs 2. We highly recommend setting the population minimums for butchers, as without them, your sheep population will struggle to grow, as for some reason, butchers love to kill the babies first. For top efficiency, we recommend keeping at least 100 sheep and 160 lambs for nigh on infinite meat. If you have a salt yield, it can be worth making sausages, as it will double your food yield from a meat source, as well as create extra food variety. But we don't recommend spending regional wealth on importing salt. Finally, let's talk about the most important perk for all meat making: advanced skinning. Advanced skinning has been upgraded to double meat production from all sources. Pigs will now generate 4 meat per 150 days, which will almost entirely feed that family for that period, which in our opinion makes that upgrade worth it. Sheep will now be butchered for 6 meat and lambs for 4. And each deer will produce 4 meat instead of 2, with each trap, if you take the trapping upgrade, producing 2 meat per passive period instead of the 1. If you have any form of meat production in your settlement, you need this perk. We also highly recommend taking sheep breeding, and as a fun did you know, you do not need sheep farms for sheep to be tended to, only for them to be sheared, and it is in fact passive workers that will do the general caring for your sheep. Hopefully with these tips, you'll never go without meat again. Vegetables and apples. Here's the portion of the guide filled with jokes. In our initial 2 guides, we mentioned that the size of your burgage plot matters, and when it comes to veggies and poms, the bigger the better. Well, in terms of yield, that is completely the case, but further research has found out that sometimes your burgage plot can be too big to be efficient. A user by the name of Fortigun over on Steam has worked out an excellent plot size guide for efficient passive food gain, which we'll link in the description, but here's how it works. For vegetables and apples, you do not want just a long plot, but a wide one. One decent sized vegetable garden, about 0.75 Morgan, or 3 corpse pits / logging camps in size, can provide more than enough vegetables for 20 plus families to benefit from the extra food variety. Orchards follow the same rules as vegetable gardens, but can be twice the size for about the same amount of labor. These plots do require more than one family to manage them, so make sure you add the extra housing slot. One other benefit to the additional housing is to combat the same issue surrounding most production chains, which is logistics and pantry size. Burgages have a pantry size that scales with the level of the burgage plot itself, 25 at level 1 or 37 for a double plot, 50 at level 2 or 75 for the double plot, or a whopping 150 at level 3 or an even more whopping 225 for a double plot. Therefore, in the early game, you can quite easily have a burgage plot produce more than it can physically store. Throughout the game, you will offset this by either upgrading plots with vegetable gardens and orchards, or by building a granary solely dedicated to distributing and collecting only a set type of produce. Finally, unlike artisan housing, the extra families on these plots can also be assigned to work in other places, but we recommend that you do not assign them to jobs that require constant or whole family labor, such as foraging, farming, or the malt house. It is usually best to assign them to a church or a corpse pit for the first year of planting due to the extra labor involved in preparing vegetable patches or orchards. Those buildings have no labor requirements if there are no bodies to bury, and assigning them there will prevent families from being distracted with the construction work or other hauling jobs that idle families have to do. In later years, when labor is lower, as most of the prep work has been done and all you need to do is harvest the resources, you can then assign those families to lower labor jobs like the saw pit or tanneries that don't utilize the entire family unit. Eggs. Eggs require very little to set up and are the complete opposite of veggies and apples. First of all, don't waste land on huge plots, as it does not affect egg production. Eggs are produced per burgage, not per family, so having a burgage with a bonus housing extension or upgrading it to tier 3 will not make it produce more eggs. Eggs spawn at a rate of 1 per month. For a time, it was theorized that they were affected by the families within the plot and the tier, but that is no longer the case. Since egg output can't be increased, you will want roughly 1/3 of your burgages to have chicken coops to constantly benefit from the extra food variety that eggs might bring. How quickly you accumulate enough to get a happiness bonus will depend on your overall food variety. The third of your burgages that have chicken coops will house your main assignable labor force, since managing a coop does not require labor, and it's therefore best to assign these families to jobs that require constant work, such as foragers, farmers, miners, and so forth. Berries. Bursting with flavor! Berries in the current build are the first resource you should attempt to acquire in a standard run of Manor-Lords. And we absolutely slept on how powerful they are when we made our first couple of guides. Currently in Manor-Lords, berries will grow constantly throughout the spring, generating faster than you'd ever believe. We spent some time micromanaging the harvesting, moving foragers to different huts each time the internal storage filled up, and managed to accumulate enough berries to last 50 months in the first year. This is only improved by rich yields and the development perk, which allows for double the amount of berries to grow. The cycling method is micro-intensive, but will guarantee a high yield each season. That being said, you can still generate a huge harvest without micromanagement. If you do want to leave it to do its thing, we recommend building 2 foragers' huts and assigning between 4 and 6 families, 2 to 3 families per building. You should treat these families as seasonal workers though, and pull them off to other jobs once spring has ended and the berries have been depleted for the year. Also be aware that collecting herbs seems to lower the output of berries. Bread making and farming revised. Time to get that bread, gamers, and talk about the wheat and wheat byproducts. I wonder if anyone will get that reference. For farming, keep fields between 1 and 2 Morgans in size, and group them in 3 fields per active farmhouse. one for each year of crop rotation. The general consensus is that one farmhouse can handle around 5 morgens of land, but going to that size risks some of the harvest during bad weather as it will take too long to collect all of the fresh grain. Furthermore, now that it works, upgrading farmhouses with the oxen upgrade to reduce worker requirements for ploughing is really useful. Furthermore, we recommend placing the farmhouses on low threshing priority to ensure your farmhands pick up all of the crops from the fields before the weather destroys them. If you're planning on going into bread making, we highly recommend that you fully specialize the settlement for farming and pick up all of the farming upgrades, bar irrigation, mainly due to the fact sheep breeding is potent and you'll save so much money breeding them than having to buy them in to help increase your soil fertility. We currently provide 1 windmill for every 3 farms we build, and build a granary close by that is set to only hold grain and flour. We also tend to skip the communal ovens unless we're desperate for food, as bakeries are far more efficient than the communal ovens for the simple fact that their pantry storage is 150 rather than the measly 50 on the communal ovens, and they produce 2 bread per flour instead of 1. Honey. Honey can go itself. Thank you so much for watching yet another Manor Lord's Guide. Let me know in the comments down below if there is a topic area you would like me to cover.
Get in the comments!
Or perhaps a game you feel that needs a guide. Or simply just comment your favorite emoji. Comments go a long way to helping these videos grow. Furthermore, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Next September will mark 10 years of myself being on YouTube, and we are aiming for the stars, hoping to get to 100,000 subscribers by that time. 95% of my audience currently isn't subscribed, and if everybody watching this video hits the subscribe button, we'll get there in no time. It's completely free and it would mean so much to me. Anyway, I've been Midgeman. I hope this guide has helped, and we'll see you next time.